There we go. Sorry about that. It looks like I had to reboot my browser to get it to work. I apologize for the delay. So on this particular one, this particular braid, I like to use this style Marudai as opposed to some of the more common ones. It's got a fairly thick mirror, and it has a nice steep sloping hole in the center, which allows the braid to kind of float free at the point of braiding. Normally, it tends to like rest when they're a shallower slope. It tends to rest on the edge, and for this particular braid, it makes it difficult for the braid to progress as it wants to like get stuck on the other threads as you're working through it. This particular one has two different colors. Normally, the color patterns are completely separate. You have the three lighter colors here, and then you have 7 sets of 2 of the other color. I've added 2 of the lighter color in to the second part of the pattern because I wanted to try and recreate the picture of it on the cover of Makiko's first edition of her Maru-dai 1 book. So the pattern here is fairly simple for the red. Basically, this being the top or a waypoint for me for these 3. I take it from this side, drop it down to this set of 3 on the opposite side of where it's coming from. This crosses over here, and this one here goes back up here. Now, the lighter color moves have all been done for the set. Then, this comes across here, jumps over here, comes across here, jumps over here, and then it does kind of a zigzag where it'll go across here, across to this set, and then back up to here, and we're at the start of the pattern again. And I usually try and give it like a little jiggle here at the point of braiding to kind of let all the strands come back together to a single point, and they don't get stuck on each other as they slide over, because even kind of lifting up and going over it doesn't really settle as easily as a lot of other braids. So I'm going to go through and braid this for a while, and feel free to ask any questions. Looks like I'm the only one here, so I apologize for that, but I'll go ahead and get started. I also tend to reposition threads back to their starting point so they don't like drift over and become confusing as to what I'm braiding where. This Marudai is also a bit shorter than some of the ones I use, so I'll be dropping down the tama a lot faster than I normally do because they climb up fairly quickly for the relative space I've got. And the mnemonic I used for the darker threads, I'll read off here in a second, just so you get an idea of my mental process. So I do cross, next, cross, next, then cross, cross, cross. That's how I remember the order of the moves. Cross, next, cross, next, cross, cross, cross. And we are back to the start of the pattern. I've done one complete repetition through, and everything is back at its starting spot, at least for the black ones. The red ones, I think they have a different count because there's a different number of them. But since they're all the same color, this is the easiest way to know that I've gotten my way through the pattern. My one accent color is here, and my other accent color is here, leading towards these two here, and then nothing over here. And yes, I know that technically I would have to go through the pattern twice to get actually back to the exact starting point, but the layout is the same. It also lets me know that if I wind up with the colors looking different, like one here and then one over here, I've screwed up somewhere. Got somebody on, it looks like. Welcome. If you have any questions, please type them into the chat and I'll do my best to answer them. Currently dropping Tama. When they get up too high, they get hard to move around easy. If they get too long, they get tangled, so you gotta kind of balance out what works best for how you do it. Cross, next, cross, next, cross, cross, cross. Triangle, triangle, triangle. Cross, next, cross, next, cross, cross, cross. And as you notice, this does require a moderate amount of shifting to move things back to relative positions so you don't get lost. And again, this kind of wiggle here is to get the threads to uniformly settle into the point of braiding. Looks like I'm going to have to raise the bag up again as soon as I get done with this set through. Already dropped to the bottom. Also being a shorter braid, I'm a shorter Marudai. I gotta move stuff up faster because I don't have that much room for things to drop. I admit this is probably a non-standard way of doing it, but it works for me. I like to tie a knot and then use something in the knot to hang the bag from. That way I don't cut the fibers. So here you can see what the pattern is looking like. I probably had a few mistakes in this first spot here as I was getting used to what I was doing with the pattern, relearning it since the last time I did it. If you didn't do the 2 accent threads in here like I'm doing, you would wind up with a semicircular braid with the lighter color on the 2 edges and in the middle of the more curved side. Make sure I don't mess those up too much. Reposition this a little bit. Make sure everything looks good. And onward we go. And as I said, I'm back at my starting point with these 2 reds next to the normal reds. So I don't seem to be messing up the pattern, which is a good thing. Drop some of these tama down. One of my other habits when I tend to do a lot of braiding is I'll tend to drop tama on one side, braid until most of the shorter ones are back over here or on this side, and then drop those. So I don't have to like reach around a lot as much. But it doesn't always work with the patterns, so it's just a tendency, not a rule I go by. there is short enough. I don't want to wait. And it's mostly on my side. I also tend to not be all that serious. I do this because I enjoy it and I like sharing it with people. So I may not be as serious as some people as far as it has to be certain ways. I also have fun experimenting. Hope I'm speaking loud enough. I know I got the fan in the background. One of the most useful things I found when learning how to do the Marudai was when it was pointed out to me that if you tend to lift and then drop your strands over the top of the mirror rather than just lifting and going around, you do tend to get a more consistent and better done braid. This particular pattern is a little hard to do that with, but some of the others that are just straight crosses are really easy to do that, and it gives you a nice braid structure. I'm going to try and do a lot more braiding streams depending on what I have available. I have to fix my Takadai from its breakage, plus make several more. Speaking of which, I'm going to be uploading some of the videos of getting my CNC router ready to make more Takadais. I hope you'll enjoy that. If not, I apologize, but I'll do it anyway. And once again, back to the pattern start. I don't have to answer questions necessarily about this specific braid. I'm happy to answer any general braiding questions I can. And I'm mainly doing it this time today because it's a holiday here in the US, and figured it'd be a good opportunity to do it with relatively good ambient light. Though I do have extra lighting going on here, and I hope that you're able to see clearly what I'm doing. Cross, next, cross, next, cross, cross, cross. And we're back to the start again. And the bag getting close to touching the bottom. I'm probably not using the best bag for this Marudai, because it does hang down a relatively long portion of the gap. And there we go. That one didn't want to drop. I'm using DMC cotton floss for this. If I was using like a rayon or a silk, it would probably slide much better to the point of braiding. But you make do with what you are working with. DMC cotton floss is fairly inexpensive for me, and it allows me to do more projects. I'll do one or two more passes before I have to move up the bag again. Yep. And I'm just using like a regular drawstring bag with a carabiner tied to the knot to hold it. So as you can see, it actually has a fair amount of vertical height. I could probably make a smaller bag. I'm using pennies for the weights right now, and it's a little less than half the total weight of the tama, so it doesn't pull down as hard and get it to rub against the funnel. It stays more to like a point of braiding. And I'm using a split ring here, just something I can tie into the knot that the carabiner can hook onto. A smaller ring would probably be nicer, but this is what I had on hand when I was setting this up last night. Slide it up and just pull the knot snug. It doesn't have to be horribly snug. The weight of the bag will help hold it in place. And the braid is not overly slick, so it grips pretty well. Sometimes I use the drawstrings from a bag and just hang it over the knot, and that will also work as well. Works better for heavier, thicker braids that leave a larger knot. Got somebody else on. Welcome. If you have any questions, feel free to ask. I will do the best I can. This braid is 23 strands. It has 9 of one color and theoretically 14 of another, but I've added 2 of the contrasting color to kind of liven up the pattern when it's done, so it's not just straight lines on the finished product. And the way this pattern goes is pull from this side of the triangle, cross over for the triangle here, cross over but stay on the same side, cross over and on this side here, and then for the darker color we do cross to this set, next cross to this set, next cross, cross, and cross, and that's a complete run through of the pattern. And I have a checkpoint every so often that shows me that I've done the pattern right and I haven't made mistakes. And I do this jiggle here to help settle the point of braiding so that the threads flow smoothly to the into the braid the way they're supposed to. And if you're not used to doing this and don't have a lot of calluses on your fingertips, the readjusting or short nails, readjusting it does tend to be a little abrasive on the fingertips and takes a little while to build up for that. So if I haven't been braiding in a while, I can tell what I've been doing, though I usually don't braid straight through enough when I'm first starting back up that I wind up with any injury, but just it's something to be aware of. And I'm starting to get to a point of familiarity with this pattern where I'm not really even having to think as much about exactly what I'm doing, as long as I don't get distracted. Which of course means I do start going through it faster. And I do apologize. The reason I didn't braid while I was on vacation that much, in addition to not having a good Marudai for it, is I forgot to bring all the equipment I needed to do to run a live stream. That was my fault. I apologize. Though going by my channel views, it definitely paid a toll for my viewership, which is understandable. The YouTube algorithm likes it when you produce content consistently. I do have the next Takadai braid I was planning on doing to help somebody I met on vacation. Well, I've met her before, but met her again on vacation, that she wanted a little assistance on doing 2-layer Takadai braids. So I'm going to do that one next on the Takadai, and once I get my Takadai fixed to where I'm not having to use C-clamps to hold the tori on, I will definitely be doing that. I do hope you guys are finding this useful. I have fun doing it regardless, but I'd like to make it something that other people enjoy as well. My wife says I'm a kumihimo pusher, which I will cop to. Readjust a little bit, center the pattern up. And I don't know if my braid slid down or what, but apparently I'm ready to tie it off again. I'm thinking the knot might have slipped. I'm going to try and tie it up from the bottom rather than flipping it up through the top. See if that helps a little better. Yeah, I don't think I'm braiding all that fast. I'm going to do this a little differently. I'm going to untie these and give myself a little loop, the way I normally do this. I'm trying to find new uses for split rings. And remember, not everything works perfectly. Adapt, improvise, and overcome. All right, so got a little loop here. And the bag is now hanging off the loop. Let's see if I can show this. And that was probably a mistake. Let's see. I don't think any went over each other. So looks like there's our 3 sets of 3 and our 7 sets of 2. 4, 4, and 6. All right. And it's time for the triangle again. 1, 2, and 3. And cross, next, cross, next, cross, cross, and cross. These are a little short. Okay. Jiggle the center of braiding. point of braiding. 1, 2, and 3. Cross, next, cross, next, cross, cross, cross. And we are back at the starting point again, so I didn't screw anything up with that I'm aware of. It's always nice when you know you're not making mistakes, or at least not propagating mistakes that repeat. Dropping some of the tama because they're getting a little high. Also, this was my first ever Marudai. I purchased it with my tama, or when I bought my first set of tama. Probably about 20 or more years ago. I don't remember exactly when it was. And back again to the starting layout. When I get a better setup, I'll try and get the camera to point over my shoulder, so it's much easier to see what I'm doing from my viewpoint. I realize this is kind of reversed for most people. Plus, more on top would obscure less of what I'm doing. And you see where I'm kind of having to pause in spots for the tama to untangle, or the threads to untangle. That's because I'm running the tama hanging a bit lower with the threads longer. So like I said, again, it's kind of a balancing act. Also, the faster I go, the more they jump around and easier for them to get tangled together. So there is kind of a limit to how fast you can actually go, but it also depends on how smooth you are in your movements. If you're really careful, you'll probably run pretty fast. Hey, I've been going for about 45 minutes now. Probably won't go too much longer. I do want to thank everybody who's subscribing. I'm actually somewhere around about a third of the way to monetization. Just need another like 600 subscribers and another 1,000 hours of people watching me. Helps not to get confused. But yeah, some of the things I'm thinking of doing are getting a better microphone and camera for this, so it's much easier to see what I'm doing and hear what I'm saying. Oh, glad to help you, Carolyn. I really enjoy this, and I'm glad that I'm able to provide something useful for you. Thank you for coming and watching. I appreciate that. That one's getting really short. That's why the lark said knot is so useful to Kumihimo braiders. You can just slide it down and increase your length. And again, for those who missed it, this particular Marudai was the first one that I'd gotten, and it has a very deep funnel relative to a lot of other Marudais, which for braids like this, where it's hard to do the crossovers, where it doesn't want to slide around each other as easily, makes it a lot easier because you can keep the point of braiding more floating and less running along the edge and snagging other strands. And I do this little jiggle here to kind of settle the threads into the point of braiding. Side effect of running fast, the tama tend to tangle. If they're longer, that is. Not so much if they're short. If they're just barely hanging over the lip of the mirror, they don't tangle easily, but they don't settle very well. Yes, it's in the description. Let me grab it real quick and read it off. And I apologize in advance for my butchered Japanese. It's Hanenkumi. Let's see. I don't want to do the pattern because I don't own the copyright for that. Let's see, did I get myself lost? Nope, I know where I'm at. Okay. One of the things, familiarity, is you do tend to get used to what the center point of braiding is, and you can tell what your last move is because it's the highest one across everything else, which I'm sure most of you know, but it's a good thing to remember every now and then, and to let the newer braiders know so they're not as lost. And I'm back again at my starting layout. I'll recenter it a little bit. Just doing a quick tama drop. Ooh, we got 5 people on. Thank you very much for joining. And for those that haven't been here before, the triangle of 3 sets of 3 of one color, pull from this side, go to the bottom here, take from the top, over to the top on the other side, from the bottom up to the side opposite where you started from. That's that color pattern. And assuming these were all the same color, that's the normal layout for this, but I have 2 additional colors added in. We start here, we go across, next, across, next, across, across, and across. And that's a complete run through of the pattern. And I start from the top side, I cross over here, and next it's from the opposite side of this, what was originally the 2 pair, but it kind of jumps over the opposing color. Then the far side jumps across, the far side jumps over, and then we go across, across, and across, and we're back where we started from. And since the point of braiding is rising a little higher than the bag would support, it lets me know that I've reached the bag touching the bottom of the Marudai again. So I take that out, and I'm going to take this D-ring out because it'll make it easier to slide the, or not D-ring, split ring out, because it'll make it easier to slide the knot up. But to let you know, it was probably about here when I started today. So I've done this much on the stream, and bent from the knot. But as you can see, the pattern appears to be consistent, so I haven't been screwing it up. Let me see if I can get a closer up view of the braid pattern here. Get it in focus. There we go. Twist it a little bit. Sorry, the camera's reversed for me, so. And I do like the way that's coming out. So let me set the camera back up where you can see what I'm doing again. Alrighty, I'll tie the knot again. And this is just a simple slidable knot. Pull it tight and hang the bag strands off of the knot. Okay. And reposition things back from where I moved it around. Thank you very much, Carolyn. And I apologize for mangling anybody's names. Okay. I'm not sure exactly what schedule I'm going to keep this up on while I'm going through this braid, but I figure probably about an hour at a time, just so people can see the progress and ask questions if they have them. And probably a couple times a week. I'll be braiding it other times, so it's not going to all be on the live stream. And I'm back to my starting point again in the pattern. Thank you, Phyllis. It's a little hard to get used to at the beginning, but once you get going and familiar with the pattern, it's not that overly complex. You've got about 15 moves, and you can think of them as two separate braids being joined together. So it is very relaxing once I get going. So these first three moves are their own thing, and it's the ridges along the braid. And this is the core, essentially. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So it's 10 moves. And again, like I said, it is a little bit to wrap your mind around when you first start out, because it's not as intuitive as a lot of the other braids. But I have done braids that were more complex or a lot more moves. So this would be, I'd say, high intermediate pattern. I definitely wouldn't teach this to a first timer, but somebody who's got like maybe 5 or 6 braids under their belt that they've learned how to do, this would definitely be well within the range of being able to learn how to do that one. So. And again, on this one of the key things is remembering to do the little jiggle at the end of the pattern cycle to get the threads to settle into the point of braiding properly. Just kind of a little just back and forth wiggle with the fingertips. So. And once I get this done, I'm happy to take suggestions on another braid to do. So people get a chance to see braids that they want to learn done, so they have an easier time of picking them up. That's kind of one of the things I was planning for this channel here, is to make it easy for people. To pick up new braids and expand their skill set without as much trial and error at the beginning of it. Since this isn't a symmetrical or even numbered braid pattern, I don't worry as much on this one of trying to do what I normally do, kind of setting 2 heights for the tama so that they don't clack as much and they don't interfere with each other as much. On some braids, it makes it a lot easier. On this one, not so much, but I still try to at least have like every other one set kind of a different height, but the way the pattern goes, some of them are going to wind up at the same height, just working your way through the pattern. So I don't worry too much about that. And you don't necessarily have to do the wiggle at the end of the pattern every time, but I would probably try and do at least every other time, just so the braid moves in consistently into the point of braiding. Oh, absolutely. I save all the live streams. They should be up probably within moments of me ending it, because I don't run them that long. I also let people go back through, and you can scroll back to the beginning and rewatch it at a faster or slower speed. So it's redo and look over again as you would like. I really do want to make this as easy to use and useful a tool for braiders as I can. I also may go ahead and do like a little short video of one time through the pattern with a really up-close camera, so it's much easier to see each move. Oops, weight slipped off the knot. That'll happen sometimes. If it happens a lot, I'd recommend doing like a knot and then another knot. And again, I'm probably only about 40% of the total Tama weight for my counterweight bag, so that the point of braiding floats a bit more than normal, and it gets the braid to be a nice tighter braid. Otherwise, it tends to be a little loose and not as discreet of the half circle shape. So. And thanks everybody for asking questions. It makes it much easier for me to know what to tell people about, rather than just going, okay, was this useful or that useful? I have to reposition it. The hairs are kind of wandering off on their own. And again, this is my starting position. I have 3 sets of 3 of one color, and normally all the rest of them will be a different color, and it's 7 sets of 2, 2, 2, 2, 2, and 2, 2, and 2. And Makiko's book has a very nice drawing showing how the pattern of braiding works its way through. It's a nice triangular crossover pattern that is very pretty to look at. Looks like I've gone over the hour I was planning on doing. I'm going to finish one more time through to my starting point of the layout, and then I'll call it a day for the stream. Thanks again for everybody who joined. I really appreciate that. You're welcome, Carolyn. Thank you guys for coming on and watching me have fun doing my hobby. speaking of this Marudai, I have commented before about how the funnel makes it easier for this particular pattern and some other patterns that are similar. I'm planning on making some Marudai mirrors like this. I've got a CNC router. It's not that hard to program for it. So I would probably do it that way to make it available for those people who would like to use this style of mirror. I should have a functioning website to sell my Takadais fairly soon, and I'll put it on there as well. That's probably at least a few months down the road, and thank you for your patience for that as well. And we are back at the beginning of the pattern. Thank you again. Oh, let me do an up-close video here. So, let's see. If you notice, the funnel is has a very steep mirror, and it's actually a fairly thick mirror, and you can tell it's been used a lot. But I hope that gives you a better idea, and it lets the point of braiding float a lot more than on some of the other mirror designs where it's a much flatter funnel. Thanks again, everybody. I'll probably be back on in a day or two. Yes, I would definitely be doing larger circles. This one is probably about maybe 16 to 18 inches high, which is why I've got the little table I built underneath for it. Let's see. Reading through the questions here. All right, everybody have a safe one, and I'll see you in a couple days.